McNamara of the Stoughton Police Department. In order to be fully transparent, I am here publicly to disclose the results of an internal affairs investigation ordered by me, which uncovered serious misconduct on the part of former Stoughton police officers. What I'm about to brief you on is something deeply troubling to me as a human being and as a police chief. On February 4th, 2021, 23-year-old Sandra Birchmore was found deceased in her apartment in Canton. I am not here today to talk about the subsequent investigation into Ms. Birchmore's death. Her death was investigated by the Norfolk District Attorney's Office. What I am here to talk about today is her life and how she was failed by, manipulated by, and used by people of authority that she admired and trusted right up until her final days. Ms. Birchmore was a vulnerable person who had one constant in her life since childhood: her unwavering admiration of police officers, of those serving the military, people in uniform, people with oaths and duties to protect and serve. The admiration led her to form relationships with men who were willing to take advantage of her. The media has previously reported about Ms. Birchmore and her relationship with former Stoughton police officer Matthew Farwell. On February 5th, 2021, the day after Ms. Birchmore's death, I ordered Deputy Chief Brian Holmes to lead a full and complete internal investigation to determine what, if any, misconduct was committed by members of the Stoughton Police Department. The death of Ms. Birchmore and the subsequent inquiries into her life and death revealed a deeply disturbing pattern of behavior toward her. I'm here today because it is my duty, a duty that I take very seriously, to report to our community on the findings of a nearly 19-month-long, complex, and resource-intensive investigation. This is my first and earliest opportunity to speak about this investigation, which has just finished and has been reviewed by counsel as recently as yesterday. The investigation, in which Deputy Chief employed the service of numerous outside private investigators and subject matter experts, has resulted in the following findings. 3 former members of the Stoughton Police Department, William Farwell, Matthew Farwell, and Robert Devine, were identified as the subjects of the Stoughton Police Department Internal Affairs case number 21-1-IA. The sustained finding involving Matthew Farwell were the following. Matthew Farwell, in violation of the Stoughton Police Department rules and regulations, demonstrated conduct unbecoming an officer, failed to demonstrate untruthful, and the sustained finding involving William Farwell are the following. William Farwell, in violation of Stoughton Police Department rules and regulations, demonstrated conduct unbecoming, violated data entry policies, sound judgment, was untruthful, and failed in his attention and devotion to duty. Robert Devine were the following. Robert Devine, in violation of Stoughton Police Department rules and regulations, failed to demonstrate sound judgment, was untruthful, and failed in his attention and devotion to duty. The facts of this case, after an intensive and complete investigation, are as follows. In 2010, Miss Birchmore, then age 13, entered the Stoughton Police Department Explorer program. It was there as a child that she met Matthew Farwell, an instructor in that program. The evidence demonstrates that Matthew Farwell began an inappropriate relationship with her when she was 15 and he was 27. The investigation uncovered many hundreds of digital messages and explicit exchanges between Matthew Farwell and Miss Birchmore over the course of several years. The investigation continued from there. Evidence discovered determined that at least 3 Stoughton police officers, who were all known to each other, including Matthew Farwell, his twin brother William Farwell, had inappropriate relations with Miss Birchmore. The investigation showed that William Farwell, in addition to having multiple inappropriate physical encounters with Miss Birchmore, exchanged explicit messages and photographs with Miss Birchmore while he was on duty. The evidence suggests that William Farwell also, at the very least, attempted to introduce Miss Birchmore to other men. The evidence further showed that 2 others engaged in inappropriate relations with this young woman. Robert Devine, a former deputy chief of the Stoughton Police Department who had been previously demoted to patrol officer for abusing his power, and an individual who is now a police officer in another jurisdiction. Our investigation discovered that Matthew Farwell exploited Miss Birchmore, a young woman who was 13 when she met him, until Matthew Farwell decided to end the relationship on February 1st, 2021. According to Farwell, he went to her apartment to call off the relationship and engaged in what Matthew Farwell later called a pretty nasty argument. Miss Birchmore was found dead days later. Our investigation revealed this misconduct goes back even further. Devine was part of an after-school program at Stoughton Middle School, where he and other officers were in charge of several students without supervision from members of the school district. The investigation determined that Devine had inappropriate contact with a female student in that program. Robert Devine began overseeing the Stoughton Police Department Explorer program approximately 20 years ago. When he took over, he changed the program from a traditionally scouting program to a paramilitary style program that taught aspects of policing to youth participants. Both William and Matthew Farwell were youth participants in the Explorer program under Devine. And the Farwell brothers would later take part in that same program as instructors years later, which would put them all on a course to meet Sandra Birchmore. All 3 men, the Farwell brothers and Devine, violated their oaths of office and should never have the privilege of serving any community as a police officer. Through a sustained and deliberate combination of lies, deceit, and treachery, they violated the policies and the core values of the Stoughton Police Department, not to mention human decency. All 3 men have resigned from the Stoughton Police Department, and the conclusion of our investigation has been shared with a police chief in another community, where a 4th man associated with this investigation is currently employed. Our investigation also uncovered inappropriate communication between Miss Birchmore and a military recruiter. And we are in the process of notifying the appropriate chain of command of our findings. In years prior, a story like this would have ended here, or perhaps even earlier. All three employees have resigned, and without criminal charges, no further actions would have been taken by a police department. Not today. For decades, police chiefs in Massachusetts have called upon the legislature to create a statewide certification program, and most critical in this moment, a decertification program. We finally have one. The creation of the Massachusetts Peace Officer Standards and Training Post-Commission makes this announcement possible today. The investigation recommends, and I am today announcing the following actions. I have notified the Post-Commission of the finding against all three former employees, Devine and the Farwell brothers. The Stoughton Police Department recommends, without delay, their certification to serve as police officers be permanently revoked. I have recommended to post that all three individuals be immediately placed in the National Decertification Index, ensuring they never serve as police officers anywhere. The Stoughton Police Department submitted a copy of the investigative report to the Norfolk County District Attorney's Office. Additionally, Stoughton Police Department Explorer Program, which has not operated for many years, has been formally disbanded. We take an oath to protect and serve our community and its people. You are held to a higher standard. These men violated their oaths, and they are unfit to serve as police officers. I stand before you today as a civil servant who is heartbroken and incensed by what has transpired, and who pledges to that this chapter in the Stoughton Police Department and the town of Stoughton is over. It must never repeat. The revolving door is closed. A person who wears a badge in this community will work to earn back the trust of our citizens. We will be trained and retrained on the meaning and the importance of our oath. Anyone who violates that sacred responsibility will be held accountable. I believe in lawful, fair, and impartial policing. And I believe in police officers. I believe in the police officers and the people that work at the Stoughton Police Department today. The men and women of this agency are good, hardworking people driven by their values more than just a set of rules. I can tell you that they share in my anger and outrage. Management and labor may not always agree on everything in the workplace, but when it comes to the things that matter most, our moral compasses could not be more aligned. This has been a long investigation involving nearly 100,000 pages of cell phone records, text messages, more than a dozen interviews, several outside experts, and countless hours were spent by Deputy Chief Holmes, who oversaw this complex and draining work. He did an extraordinary job under very difficult circumstances, pulling on every thread until the investigation reached its natural conclusion. Deputy Chief Holmes is to be commended for his work, and I can say, upon reviewing and accepting the results of his investigation, that the scope of this problem in our agency has been identified and pulled out by the roots. The police officers who serve this community are here for the right reasons and wish to serve Stoughton selflessly and with dignity. Please hold us to our word. Thank you for your time, attention, and understanding, and I will do my best to answer any questions.